Yo, what is good, Knicks Nation? Welcome back to another Knicks Media live stream. And today we got two special guests. We're going to be breaking down everything with the New York Knicks. What the hell is the New York Knicks plan this offseason? We got the NBA draft to talk about. We saw what Leon Rose and company did. We have free agency coming right around the corner. We have all these rumors. We have all these reports. We have so many questions about what Leon Rose is going to be doing. So I'm really excited to get into this with our two special guests. Guys, make sure you guys check out their podcast. That's down below. It's linked. You guys know them very well. They've been on the channel. How you doing, fellas?
Richie, doing well, man. How you doing?
It feels good to be back with you boys talking Knicks. I think the first time we were linked up together on this channel was during the season last year when the Knicks were 8-6,
Yes,
I'm pretty
sir.
sure. And vibes were high. The Knicks are back. We're in the playoffs again. And now here we are in the offseason.
Listen, man, we're really happy to be back here. The vibes aren't as high because maybe the positivity is not that high. But honestly, man, from where I'm sitting, the vibes are okay. For me, the world is not on fire because we didn't draft AJ Griffin. But we'll get into all of that, man. We'll get into all of it.
Yeah, so let's start off with that. NBA draft, that was last Thursday. The Knicks have the 11th overall pick, and there was a lot of rumors going into it of what they're going to do. Are they going to trade up for Jaden Ivey? Are they going to stay pat at 11 and take the best player available? Are they going to trade back? Or are they going to trade out of the entire first round? And we saw what they did. Now, the first round for me, for those guys that watch my channel, you know where I stand. I wanted them to be aggressive to get Jaden Ivey. And guess what? They were aggressive to get Jaden Ivey. It just did not happen. And I'm happy that they were aggressive. I'm happy that they tried to get the job done with that. So, Alex, I'll start with you. What's your thoughts of the NBA draft as a whole? Your thoughts of them pursuing Jaden Ivey and not getting him, and then evidently doing what they did by trading down out of the 11th pick, getting 3 future first-round picks, shedding off Kemba Walker's salary, getting a lot of cap space and a lot of draft capital for the future. What do you think the plan is?
Overall, like the draft overall as a whole, I thought it was like a pretty low-key draft just from years past. I feel like last year's draft was really like on point where it was just so much talent, right? Where we like literally 1 through 60. Like everyone's been promoted as so. Even Jericho Sims, like we watched him play this year, 58th pick from last year's draft, could be a solid contributor in the NBA. This year's draft, there's been a little bit of just highs and lows, feeling about how many quality rotational players can be. But look, man, I was all in for the Knicks moving up to get Jaden Ivey. I wanted to go make that splash. I wanted them to finally do something and I could be like, all right, we're going in this direction. All right, we got the youth, we're going to do it. All right, we got the guard, let's get it going. No, we find out through Alan Hahn, through everybody else, the Knicks tried. Teams like the Pistons didn't see that our players are valuable, that could be put on the coach for not playing them enough and saying, hey, maybe if you played them more, maybe if you gave them more minutes, they would be considered valuable instead of looking at it as just like bench pieces. Because you look at players like Tyrese Halliburton on the Kings, I like Tyrese Halliburton as a player, but he got the minutes to show that he could be a star in this league. That's what our kids needed. But when I saw the Knicks just trade out,
He ended up getting traded for Sabonis, man. Yeah.
Yeah, we're not talking about the trade. I'm just saying, man, just getting the value up there. I don't want to hear that nonsense. But when I'm looking at this draft and watching the Knicks move out, literally my mind was melting as I was just watching it all unfold. It's and the Knicks traded out. I'm like, not really traded out, but when they drafted Ousmane Dieng, I was like, this is not the guy. This has got to be a trade. Then we see that we're trading with the Hornets. We get Durant, and we know Durant is the guy the Pistons were looking for. I was like, oh, okay. So we're about to go get Jaden Ivey. This is real. Instead, what we do, we give up Durant to the Pistons, a guy that they wanted. Sure, we shed salary. And then we get Milwaukee's 2025 top 4 protected pick in return. After acquiring 3 other picks, which we then also included in order to get Durant, we trade that Nuggets pick. I'm like, I get the thought process. Wasn't happy about it. Still, said it best last night on Knicks Fan TV. Like, I'm lukewarm right now. I'm like, I just need to see how everything else plays out to really give him the full grade. We were talking about behind the scenes, but I need to see it because right now we need talent on this team, especially at the wing. We talked about this entire offseason. We need wing talent. I know we can talk about saying, hey, we've been a crowded roster, but we still need talent on this team, and we got to shed some of those veterans. So I wasn't too pleased seeing the Knicks go in that direction.
Now, Alex, I feel you on that. I feel like it's really hard to assess what the Knicks did in the NBA draft at this moment without seeing their grand plan. If it's grand or not, we don't know. What they're going to do in free agency and what they're going to do in the trade market. We just don't know what they're going to do with those assets, what they're going to do with those future draft picks, what they're going to do with the cap space. Obviously, there's rumors about Jalen Brunson and they want him, and that could be the plan, but there could be something else that we just don't know yet. So it's really hard to assess what happened on draft night yet, in my opinion. So I agree with you there with you, Alex. So John, how about you? What's your thoughts of what happened on draft night and your overall expectations?
Yeah, so I agree with you guys at the very base of I was disappointed on draft night because not only did we not upgrade our roster on that day on the draft day, but also we got some protected picks. We had the rumors of whether or not we're going to trade up for Ivy, like we mentioned, but we had to include our own draft pick next year. So there was some it's supposed to be a loaded draft. Do we want to give up the future? And we did all this research, man. Like we were researching all these players, and all of a sudden, it's a complete opposite of. I know it's the wrong channel, but you're the Jets guy. You're a big. It's a complete opposite. They're trading up. They're getting every single guy that we talked about here. We talked about everyone, and they get nobody. So I understand why we're upset. But for me, the fact that we did these weird trades, and you kind of mentioned it, we had no idea. We read everything Knicks. We watch everything Knicks. We go to the games. We're so in tune with everything. And nobody even slighted at the idea of trading Kemba or adding more first-round picks. So from my perspective, the Knicks are scheming, man. There's no reason to think that we're about to draft all of these picks. I know they might not vest next year. I'm with you. But there's no reason to believe that we're actually going to use them to draft because we know the Tibbs – he's coming up, man. The frustration is getting high. Now the frustration with Leon Rose is getting high. There's no way we're just going to wait to draft these picks. There's too much pressure on this New York Knicks team to be good now. I know we want to wait. I know we're kind of faking being patient, but I really do believe that something has to come down the line. It can't just be Jalen Brunson. It can't. It can't just be.
That's my biggest fear.
This can't all be for Jalen Brunson. There has to be something else coming down the line that we just don't know about. That's why I'm just not as angry as our boy Ari, for example, right? Ari's been freaking out. He's been screaming since the draft, and I understand why. But the reason why I'm not there yet is because I believe that Leon Rose has a lot up his sleeve.
Yeah, man, it's obvious that he has something up his sleeve, but the thing about Leon Rose that, I had a lot of optimistic feelings about him, especially when we first hired him, right? We hire him, he gets Tom Thibodeau in the building, and then the first year we go to the playoffs. We're like, wow, Leon Rose, he knows what he's doing. He got all these guys, they all worked, and his mindset was to bring the camp back, bring the band back together, continuity. Let's re-sign Burks, let's re-sign Nerlens Noel. Let's go out there and get two guys in Kemba and Fournier. And now it feels like Leon Rose is backpedaling and trying to fix his mistakes. And it's like, okay, Leon Rose, now this is your really big opportunity to make a splash because every single draft so far that Leon Rose has done, he's traded down for future assets in order to use that for a star. And that's what we're hoping to see. Now, this is the time to do that because you saw in Leon Rose's statement that they have all the draft picks and the ammunition in order to do it. But the big question is, who's that star going to be? Are they just pursuing Jalen Brunson and that's it? Or are they pursuing Jalen Brunson and they're going to trade for a star? Now, that is what gets me excited. But I will say what gets me scared is they're getting all these assets just to trade those assets, just so we can get off the cap space of Burks and Noel, just so we can afford Brunson, and then we're running it back with Brunson and just the same roster as last year. That's my biggest fear. So let's talk about Jalen Brunson because I feel like Knicks fans are making it seem like Jalen Brunson's not every Knicks fan, but some people are making it believe that Brunson's just a scrub and not a good player. He's a great player in my opinion. I think he's a very solid player in the NBA, and what he did with the Dallas Mavericks was pretty awesome. Going to the Western Conference Finals with Luka. Whenever Luka did not play in the regular season, Jalen Brunson stepped up. But for Jalen Brunson, for me, he's not like a superstar. He's not a guy that's going to move the needle. He's not a guy that's going to, take us to the championship. So it gets me worried to give him that $28 million per year contract. But another side of me feels like, wait, what if Jalen Brunson's that player that can really unlock RJ's game and it can complement him well, and he plays with the young core? So, Alex, we'll start off with you. What's your overall thoughts of Jalen Brunson? Because the Knicks are obviously very interested in him. We see reports all over the place that the Knicks are doing everything they can to get Brunson to the Knicks. So what's your thoughts of Jalen Brunson?
Well, first off, shout out to your chat, man. It's active in the chat. Shout out to Ari. Shout out to Chico. Shout out to all those guys.
Oh yeah.
And for Jalen Brunson, like I like Jalen Brunson. You can talk. John and I, we had this lengthy conversation throughout the entire season about Jalen Brunson, where how he is a good player, because we felt like he was getting slandered like every single day. Where it's like, is Jalen Brunson that dude? Is Jalen Brunson that? It's like, yeah, Jalen Brunson is that dude. Is he going to be the guy that takes us to the championship? No. The best way to describe Jalen Brunson is that he's your floor raiser. He's not going to be this guy that takes it over the top. But we saw how the Knicks collapsed in fourth quarters or even the second half every single game. And he's that. If you need somebody so you don't have to rely on Julius Randle or anybody else in crunch time minutes to having a legitimate point guard, that is Jalen Brunson. And Richie, like to your point, like I think he would help. Like even if forget your opinion on Randle, he would help Randle. He would help RJ. He's able to play off ball. He's able to play on ball. He can shoot. He can get into the paint. I think Jalen Brunson is a good player for the Knicks to bring on this team. But 110 million, and if that's the only move that they make, that's a tough sell for this fan base, man. That's a tough sell for me, because you're telling me you're going to move all these guys to get Brunson. Like, I like Brunson, but to be the only thing you do this offseason, this is where you got to be like with my boy John and say, like, there's got to be something else that we don't know about. That's how this Knicks team moves. They usually move like in silence when it comes to like the moves that we don't see, but it can't just be Jalen Brunson.
Yeah, man, that's what really is my biggest fear. And I said it before you talked about it, Alex. And a quick shout out to the chat, because I appreciate everybody tuning in. If you guys are just tuning in, make sure you hit that thumbs up button for your boy. I greatly appreciate that. If you guys are enjoying this content, help me out. Let's get to 100 likes by the end of the show. So make sure you guys hit that thumbs up button. Of course, check out Alex and John's podcast. That's linked down below in the description. So, John, let's get your thoughts of Jalen Brunson. Are you all in on him? Do you want him to the Knicks? Is he the needle mover, or do you want him to come with another move? Or not come at all?
That's a loaded question, Richie. That's a loaded question, because some of that is yes and some of that is no. Do I want Jalen Brunson on this team? Of course I do. Do I want him for $100 million? Not ideally. However, I don't think it's that crazy. When you look at just right now, he would be around the 15th highest paid point guard, that's right around Brogdon. I know I don't want to say that name and it scares people, but that's where his salary would be. We know that the cap is going to go up in 2025. So his contract is going to theoretically go down from being the 15th highest point guard to, maybe down to around 18 to 20. That's good value. On the other hand, if Jalen Brunson is able to not only spark the offense, but actually win games. I mean, we saw him win actual playoff games. But if he's able to win regular season games, who is going to care whether or not it's 22 million or 25 million, right? Because that's really what we're talking about, right? Is he worth, 21, or like is 25 too much? And I don't think that moves the needle for the Knicks, to be honest with you. We know that we're kind of liberal when we spend our contracts, which is why I don't think we're done this offseason. Noel's going to go. Either Fournier or Burks is going to go. Cam Reddish, we've been screaming about how that was the worst trade of all time, yada, yada, yada. In general, the Knicks believe that Cam Reddish was more valuable than that Charlotte pick, and Knox was just a throw-in. So we're going to trade him too, and that's another theoretical first-round pick. So these players are going to move. I'm curious as to what it's going to bring. I hope to God it's a wing. But we all know that this really stems around our power forward situation. We know that our team is going to really be balanced one way or the other. Like, we have the guards. We have the point guards. If we have Brunson, we have IQ. theoretically we have D Rose, Grimes is still going to be there, Fournier or Burks, RJ. The center situation's locked down. Let's just throw in Mitch, make sure he's there. I feel like the pulse of the team, the vibes of the team, the needle of the team is really what you're asking. It's not going to depend on Brunson. He's going to be that point guard that can facilitate, but it's really going to depend on who's the starting power forward, in my opinion, or who are the wings and the power forward. I really feel like that's what it's going to come down to for the Knicks. So Brunson, I don't think is going to affect that from day to day, but I feel that he is finally to have a closer. Remember when you mentioned it, right? The last time the Knicks were good, we had D Rose just last year, 2 years ago, closing out games for us, and we needed him, right? When he wasn't there, like, oh no, what are the Knicks gonna do without D Rose putting in those 25 minutes? We can't have that, man. We can't have that. And Brunson could provide more than D Rose did 2 years ago. That's my bar. Okay, honestly, that's my bar.
Shout out to Josh with a $5 super chat. If it's just Brunson, seems like they listened to the fans last year. Play the kids. I'm all for it, especially with the loaded draft in 2023. Now, Josh, I absolutely love your point here, because one thing I mentioned on a video, and I said this on Twitter as well, was if the Knicks, hypothetically speaking, to Josh's point, trade away Burks, trade away Noel to get in Jalen Brunson, and they give the young guys like Emmanuel Quickley, they give the guys like Deuce McBride and Quentin Grimes, when RJ's a given, he's going to get his minutes. But the young nucleus, Obi Toppin, Mitchell Robinson, Jericho Sims, they are all getting meaningful minutes with Jalen Brunson being the point guard. You can sell me on that. Now, is that team going to go all the way and make it to the Eastern Conference Finals? Probably not, but I think it's a team that we can be excited about, and we can build the team, the youth movement, and still have a loaded draft that's upcoming in 2023. We have so many picks. And I know that the picks are not all going to convey a 2023, but if we bring in Brunson and we run it back with all the same team, but it's the young kids that's getting minutes, you can definitely sell me that, because I brought that up, and Josh, I couldn't agree more with you. So Alex, what's your thoughts of Josh's super chat right here?
I agree with that. I totally agree with that. I think that's the fear that's like kind of holding me back from what we saw this draft, is that the key part now is like, okay, so we didn't take a young player. We understand that we got 7 to 9 young players on this team right now. They got to get minutes. They got to show like what they can do, where they fit in this league. You know, we traded a first round pick, as John talked about, a top 18 protected for Cam Reddish. We got him. We didn't get to see enough of him last season. He needs to get playing time. Emmanuel Quickley, we saw what he, Obi Toppin did towards the end of the season. They need to get more minutes. Quentin Grimes, Deuce McBride, okay? We got Jericho Sims, so many young guys that need to get minutes. We want to see RJ, what he can do being, you know, as of right now. I don't think he'll be the number one guy on this team. I think he could be a good 2. We still need that superstar. I love the shirt, Richie. But we need, like, I want to see what RJ can do right now. And, like, I feel like with him and Julius, what we saw last season, granted, it was the entire roster was just too clunky. It was like you're taking turns. We didn't know who's going to get what. It was all about Randall for most part, and then everyone else came later. And what sucked is that we saw RJ have like career numbers shooting 40% from 3 and shooting really well his second year, and then he just gets like thrown to the wayside for most of the season last year. So they need to play. If you're telling me that we're getting rid of most of the veterans, we get Brunson, and we get to see a lot of these young guys play, I'm all for it. If we still have a lot of these veterans taking up key minutes, once again, you can't just sell me on Brunson all alone.
Do you guys think the pressure is going to be too high for Brunson, making $100 million in the Garden, and maybe has some flaws?
It's pressure regardless. Whoever your name is coming to the Knicks, there's pressure on Fournier last year. There's pressure on Randall coming down to that contract. I feel like it's just the way of being on the Knicks. And I feel like that's unfortunately why we've been bad for so long. That's not the reason, but it's one of the reasons. But John, what's your thoughts though of this? If it's just Brunson and we run it back, we get rid of some veterans, and all the young kids get some real meaningful minutes and they play with Brunson. What's your thoughts?
Then everybody's happy, right? Then it's a win-win situation. It's just, as we know as sports fans, everybody has to be on the same page. So that means that Tibbs has to know that he's going to be good to go for next year as well. Because you can't give Tibbs Jalen Brunson and run it with rookies and say, hey, man, how come we didn't, get to the second round of the playoffs? You're going to get fired now. You know what I'm saying? So we all have to be aligned. To be honest with, Josh Kyle's comment, I would love that. If Jalen Brunson comes to the Knicks, we know that he can play with Dinwiddie and Luka. That means he can play with IQ and RJ. That's no problem. We could have those lineups. We can play Obi. We could have a good time. It'll be fun games, fun guarding games, probably win 25 games, be in the lottery. And next year's draft is supposed to be unbelievable. So we theoretically have 4 picks, right? Obviously, they're not all going to convey. That sounds good, but we all have to be on the same page, from not only the GM to the head coach to the players, but also, Richie, and I know that you know this, first and foremost, the fans, man. We all have to be on the same page. Like, when we are all okay with the Knicks tanking so that we could get a nice pick, like the RJ year, the Zion year, we were like, okay, man, it's okay. We're here for the lottery. We weren't, flipping out with
development, John, not tanking, development.
Sure, whatever you want to say. We were developing here, of course. And then this year we have, like, our boy Ari was, one of the biggest proponents, and we have to lose every single game so we can get better picks. But some of the fan base was, no, we're trying to win games, and our head coach was too. Especially we saw how they acted at the deadline. So the Knicks, man, the most important thing for the Knicks. I mean, it feels like Brunson's inevitable, but let's just forget about that for a second. We all have to be on the same page. That's why we were so good 2 years ago, and that's why we sucked last year. I mean, it started. Randall wasn't on the same page with the squad. He wasn't on the same page with the team. Tibbs was all over the place, right? The fact that he said, I regret, how I, treated, some of my players and their minutes, like, that drove us all insane. We can't have that, man. That's what I need. I need leadership.
Yeah, it would be great if the fan base would be on the same page for once. It feels like that's just never going to happen. I feel like that's every fan base, especially New York. But I agree with every single point you made there, John. Now, when we get to the next topic, Knicks trade targets, because obviously Jalen Brunson is high on the Knicks list. We see reports all over the place. They're trying to shed cap space. They want to go in for Jalen Brunson. But what if Jalen Brunson re-signs with the Mavericks? That's possible, right?
So you can do Dad Rick Brunson dirty like that, Rich?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, Leon Rose being his former agent, it really does all point for him coming to the Knicks. But say we even still get Jalen Brunson. We didn't trade out of the 11th pick just for cap space and just for future assets to build through the draft. We got this ammunition for a trade in the future. Now, whether that trade happens this offseason, at the trade deadline this upcoming season, or next season, it's inevitable that the New York Knicks are positioning themselves to trade for a star. Now, who's that star? I wish I knew. There's a guy named Dejounte Murray who's out there, who's available, but all of a sudden we hear rumors that he might be going to the Atlanta Hawks. Hello? What the heck's going on here, Leon Rose? Don't let that happen. So, Alex, what's your thoughts of the Knicks trade targets? It's not like we're sitting here and we don't have any ammo to get a trade done, because that would be a completely different conversation if the Knicks only had 1 first round next year. They only have their own picks. That's not the case. We have 22 picks in the next 7 years, 11 first, 11 second, I believe. So what should the Knicks do with all this ammunition? Should they go out there and get a star via the trade market now? If so, who is it?
If you can go get a star right now, I'd feel like it'd have to be Donovan Mitchell, right? If you can go,
yes, he's in the thumbnail for that reason.
Like it has to be Donovan Mitchell. I mean, it makes more sense.
Go on.
It makes more sense for like him being a New Yorker. It seems like he wants to be back in New York. It seems like we all hear the reports of how he's like growing. He doesn't feel the support out in Utah. It seems like he's growing disinterested with being a Jazz right now. So it feels like for me, it's got to be Donovan Mitchell. I like Dejounte Murray. I think it would be difficult to trade with the Spurs. I think just one Knicks organization, how he took Mook away from them through free agency. Also, I just don't know like what they say a Drew Holiday like package that they wanted for Dejounte Murray. If we have reports that it's hard for the Knicks to move the kids to go get Jaden Ivey, I would have to think it's probably going to be just as difficult to go move some of these kids because that's going to be what they want, right? They're going to want either quickly a Grimes or somebody like that for Dejounte Murray. So I think it's going to be a Donovan Mitchell. I think that's more realistic because Danny Ainge loves his picks. I feel like you want to go rebuild around there. It's going to be much more difficult to trade, in my opinion, Rudy Gobert on a $200 million contract than it is to get than to trade Donovan Mitchell, who you can get more assets for. So I feel like it'll be Donovan Mitchell over Dejounte Murray. But I don't know if it's going to happen this year. We'll see what happens. I hope it does. I
agree. I'm a huge Donovan Mitchell fan. Obviously, he's a New Yorker. He's a huge Mets fan. Let's go Mets. It's just inevitable for him to be on the Knicks. I've always felt that for so long. And we see some cryptic tweets from him. We see like what's going on with Utah. I put Donovan Mitchell in the thumbnail to this stream because I want him here. I want to manifest it. So, John, what's your thoughts of the trade targets? Is Donovan Mitchell someone that you'd want the Knicks to pursue, or are you more on the Murray wave, or you rather them not do anything in the trade markets right now?
All right, so let's start with Mitchell. Of course, he's a New York guy, and he's a superstar. Personally, his usage rate kind of scares me, just being flat out honest, but I would love him on the team. You know what I'm absolutely terrified of more than anything is trading with Danny Ainge. I don't want to trade with Danny Ainge. I just don't want to do it. And I do believe at the same time, they're looking to trade Gobert and kind of build around Mitchell, or at least build something so that they can trade Mitchell and fit the right pieces around. I don't think they're trying to build around Gobert. Then you said Murray. I love Murray. I think he's a walking triple-double. He should be on the defensive team, at least a second defensive team, or at least get the high votes, be an honorary member almost every single year. I truly believe that. My question to you, I know you don't really like to answer a question with a question, but when we're talking about Murray specifically, why are we so quick to want to give up 4 first-round picks for Murray, but we're so reluctant to give up $25 million a year, which is going to literally be lower in 2 years? I just don't understand the logic for that, because it's going to solve the same exact problem. You know, Mitchell, I get it. But does Mitchell really solve any specific problems, or is it just a luxury? Like, is he just like a Bentley? You know what I'm saying? It's nice. It's great. I don't know if he's really what we need, but it's a perfect car. It's my favorite car. I've been thinking about this car, you know, all the time, because that's what I feel like Mitchell is. Don't you feel like him and RJ is a tough fit?
Yeah, I mean, I love Donovan Mitchell's game. If you want to talk about him on the court with RJ Barrett, that is definitely interesting conversation to have. You know, who's going to be the point guard? That's going to be a big, factor in that dynamic, I think. But the reality is the Knicks desperately need star power, because we know that the NBA is based off stars. And obviously you see teams like the Bucks and the Warriors recently, you know, they built through the draft, but they also developed their own superstars, that being Giannis Antetokounmpo and Steph Curry. So we're trying to build this team properly through the draft, but at the same time, we have that young core already. So that brings me back to my the NBA draft and what we did on Thursday night. The reason why we didn't draft at number 11, which gives me confidence that they're really going to give a lot of minutes to the young people on the roster, like Quickly, like Grimes, and all these guys that are already on the roster. So the young core is there. RJ Barrett's there, who I think is a star in the making. Now, the question is, how are we going to get a star to come to the Knicks? Now, you mentioned Donovan Mitchell. Is he going to compliment him well? Guys, let me know in the chat. Everybody in the chat, let me know. Is Donovan Mitchell a player that you think is worth trading for? And same with Murray, because Murray that's a really good point you mentioned, John. Why are we so okay to give up 3 or 4 firsts for Murray, but we're reluctant to give Brunson $25+ million, where you don't have to give up those assets? You just have to pay him, and you got to pay players every single year. So, you know, what this tells me is that Leon Rose and the Knicks front office, they have so much deciding to do, and it overwhelms me, because I just want to know what the hell they're going to do. I know we're all on the same page here. We see the ammunition, we see the cap space that they're trying to create, we see everything there, and now it's just a matter of what the plan is. And we're just sitting here thinking, like, is it going to be this guy? Is it going to be that guy? So let's see what everyone's saying in the chat. Guap says yes, no, yes, both are worth trading for. Brunson is more polished, IQ with worse defense. Hell no. Yes. Yes, as long as we pair Mitchell with the defensive point guard, not Brunson. Donovan Mitchell, yes. So seems like the chat is divided. What else is new? But listen, man.
Welcome to the fan base.
Yeah, right. I just feel like the Knicks team needs a star. And they have a potential star on the making in RJ. And hey, we had a star on the team for a season in Julius Randle. He was a star, guys.
Let me ask you a question. Richie. How patient do you want to be? Like, can we wait for D-Book to just walk here in 2 years? Like, can we wait? Do we have the wherewithal as a fan base to just wait? Like, if we sign Brunson, we have a million picks to if we want to pull a trigger at any point. Next year's draft is supposed to be a huge draft. And then Devin Booker, who you talk about CAA, you know what I mean? If everybody that's connected to the Knicks eventually ends up on the Knicks, and Devin Booker can walk in to the Knicks for free in 2 years, not cap space wise, of course, but for free asset wise, is that worth waiting for in your opinion? Because I know we want the shiny car. I want the shiny car too, I promise. But I'm just wondering realistically if that's a better plan.
See, like that is something I would love to do, but it's just such a what if? What if the Suns extend him? What if the Suns trade him somewhere else? Or what if whatever? I mean, there's so many factors that will go that way. It's not guaranteed we get him. But if you're asking me, do I want Devin Booker on the Knicks in 2 years potentially? 110%.
Well, it's like, do you want to tank for 2 years is more the question for that potential.
I might get crapped on in the chat, but I'm always anti-tank. I'm more play the kids and develop. And if the kids win, I'm okay with it because that means the Knicks team is learning how to win, developing winning habits. I'm all for playing like, just to say real quick, last year drive me absolutely insane watching Alec Burks run the point, like watching the veterans play over the young players. That drove me ridiculously insane because we need the young players out there. In my opinion, playing the young kids that we have on this roster isn't tanking. It's giving them an opportunity to develop, like Alex said earlier. So, Alex, what's your thoughts of all this? Because I feel like I'm just all over the place of what I want. And it's like now John's making me think about the whole tanking
Devin
of what
Booker.
Burke's playing point guard and now Burke and Devin Booker. What's your thoughts of all this?
Welcome to my life and co-hosting with John, where I have to start thinking about
Great,
Devin Booker at like it'll be like 3 p.m. midday, like closing out the workday. It's like, what do you think about Devin Booker on the Knicks? I'm like, what? Like, how is this even happening?
ESPN Trade Machine is like my most visited website.
I mean, Devin Booker on the Knicks, hell yeah! But it's like, how?
I'm making trades all day long to Alex. Isaiah Stewart's been on this team every other day. Everybody's been on this team.
Stewart, Valanciunas, everybody. But look, I would love Devin Booker on this team. I could if you're telling me wait 2 years, Devin Booker walks through those doors through free agency, absolutely. If it's like you're playing, Richie, where you're playing a lot of the kids to develop them and they're growing and they're becoming better players and they're being able to win, 100%. And if you want to say like, if you want to change from like me being angry what they did on draft night to being happy with that draft capital, I don't know what it will get you, right? We saw that a top 18 protected pick, as I said, got you a distressed asset in Cam Reddish. What happens when they're all aggregated together and what does it get you? I don't know. But if you're telling me that either one, you get a good player in the 2023 draft, or you can move all those players and then move all those assets and get somebody maybe even sooner like Devin Booker, because instead of having come through free agency, you can maybe able to get him on the last year of his deal. Maybe, I'm not saying it would be realistic, but if you could trade all those assets, get him on the last year of his deal, and that makes it more enticing for him to sign here because you'd be able to get a 5-year contract. It's another way to think about it too. But making all sense of it, Richie, I just want the young kids to play. I just want to see what they got. All right. They didn't get the chance to play through their struggles. We saw Deuce McBride against Toronto got pulled. We saw him in Westchester and never saw him again until like towards the end of the season for like spot minutes just to play defense. Quickly didn't get his chance to play through to become an actual point guard, which is what Tibbs wanted until the end of the season. Obi Toppin, the backup quarterback, actually legitimately showed out and put up 40 points towards the end of the season. Just let the kids play, man. I just want to see what they can do. I don't need to see Alec Burks. I don't need to see Fournier. I don't need to see any of those dudes like just hooping out there. All right. I don't need to see like, all right, cool. We're out here. We're making our no, I want to see the young kids. They're hungry, man. Feed them.
They're starving. They're starving, Alex. I love everything you said. Let that energy come at you. Let the rant come out of you. I love the energy, baby. AGW with the $5 super chat. He's talking about Jalen Brunson. It seems like he does not want him on the Knicks. Let's hear it. Here's why. Number one, Brunson is undersized. Number two, he had his best year in a contract year. Always scary. Number two, again, $25 million is a lot for a non-all-star. Upside is limited. John, your thoughts of AGW's $5 super chat?
Thank you for supporting the channel, number one. Number two, I agree. Brunson is undersized. There's no doubt about it. And sometimes you have to hide him on defense. No doubt about it. I agree. He had his best year in a contract year. I agree. But at the same time, it's a natural progression. It's not that he was bad before and all of a sudden he had a spark year. It's kind of the way he progressed and it was expected of him. You know what I mean? It's kind of like saying Aaron Judge right now. Oh yeah, it's a contract year. Like he's doing the same thing he's doing every year. So that's how I feel about the contract year situation. But where I really have a problem with this is the 25 million is too much. It's just not too much by the standards of point guards that are paid in the NBA. So if I tell you Malcolm Brogdon and you want to throw up, but then I tell you Jalen Brunson and you're okay with it, but you're not okay with the money and they're making the same amount of money, I don't understand where the issue is. It's just that 25 million sounds scary. I think you really hit the nail on the head, Richie. We're stuck in a different time. We're stuck, back in the day where that's a crazy sounding contract. 25 million. Oh my God, how can you do that? He must be a max player. It's not going to be like that in literally 2 years. It's going to be, if it's 15 now and players are going to keep getting higher, because they're going to say, look at what Brunson got. You better pay me more if you want me to stay, or are you trying to entice me over? The salary cap is going to go up. It's going to be a good deal in literally 2 to 3 years. So that's why I don't think Brunson is the end-all, be-all. I don't even think he's going to make the All-Star team as a New York Knick. But I still think the 25 million is worth it. And let me ask you this: to contemplate on. How did you feel about the Fred VanVleet contract when it was, oh my goodness, we can't sign him for that much. It's way too much. He's not a game changer. And now that contract is so cheap, right? Would you have wanted that contract now looking back on it? So that's kind of how I feel about what Brunson's contract is going to look like in 2 years.
You could bring up a great point because the salary cap and the amount of money that everyone's making is so that the perception's not there because it rises. You can compare it to the NFL as well. Like, a player's making X amount of dollars because that player on that team got that much money, and it's just always going to raise. So you bring up a great point on that. That $25 million, it looks like it's like crazy because, first of all, it's a lot of money. But if you compare it to the other people around the league, salary cap's only going to get higher. And this contract could look like a bargain in a couple seasons, like John mentioned. So I agree with everything you said there. AGW, I appreciate the $5 donation. Alex, you have anything to say about this point real quick?
For what? The Fred VanVleet and seeing like the relatable contract? Like, I think it would be. Like, I agree with John. I mean, we talked about that so many times on the pod where if you're looking at Brunson right now, like you're hesitant about it. I say the one thing is that I like Fred VanVleet more than Brunson just because his defensive tenacity. But I still think like when you look at the cap, when you look at the salary cap, it's going to change within the next 2 years. I think the CBA expires in 2024, 2025, somewhere around there. They're talking about player salaries going from like 250 up to like 300 some odd million as like being like max contract. So that there's going to be more incentives, more guys who are getting paid from this deal. Like talk about like publicity, streaming rights and so forth. They're going to have all these sponsorships. So for a guy like Brunson, that's going to be like, it's not going to be cheap, like, but relatively it'll be less of the salary cap that you're spending. Instead of being like 20 some odd percent, it'll probably be down closer to like 18, something along those lines.
I agree, man. I agree. Kelvin, my man, one of the biggest supporters here on Knicks Media. I appreciate you. How you been, Kelvin? 331 people watching, only 73 likes. Please go smash that like button. Guys, if you're enjoying the show and you want to see more great Knicks content like this, you want to see Alex and John hop on the channel more often, smash that thumbs up button. Help me get to 100 likes before the stream is all wrapped up. Kelvin, hope you're doing well, my man. Now, let's get into another topic that's regarding this offseason. It's not about bringing in new players, though. It's about retaining our own players. So Mitchell Robinson is a pending free agent. There's a report from Ian Begley that came out last week that all signs are pointing to Mitchell Robinson being extended a contract. I think it was like 4 years, $44.5 million, if I'm not mistaken. And then we have another player in RJ Barrett who's eligible for the rookie contract extension that you guys know where I stand on that. I want to go to you, John, first. What's your thoughts of both of those players at this moment? Do you want the Knicks to, first of all, re-sign Mitchell Robinson And number 2, do you want them to give RJ Barrett an extension or wait for next offseason to potentially do that?
So Mitch, absolutely, we have to re-sign him at this point. We can't go into the season with Noel, Sims, and potentially Taj Gibson. Of course, we're probably going to let go of that contract, probably, re-sign him for something. But Mitch Robinson, we have to re-sign him. He is a second-round pick for this team. We have developed him. He's that player that we drafted. He developed. You got to pay him, and he's not asking for anything crazy. He'd probably round out. He wanted the max extension, which is like about $57 million. They'll probably round out about like $43 million, hopefully, for Mitch. So that'll be a nice anchor center for us. Him and Sims might be really fun in a couple of years, man. Sims with those double teams, running half court and running back to the block and able to cover the whole floor. That could be really fun with Mitch Robinson as well. When you talk to RJ Barrett is 100% going to be extended by this team. He is going to be the first round pick by the Knicks since Charlie Ward to be extended. We all have RJ Barrett gear, whether it's, a jersey and t-shirt like Richie got. I'm sure he's pulling out more RJ gear. He only worked out for the Knicks during the draft process. More RJ Barrett gear.
Extend this man. Go on,
We're going to extend him. However, I do not, as much as we want to hate on Berman, I don't think it's going to be for the max. And I don't think the Knicks or RJ are in any rush to sign it immediately. The buzz is going to start coming, of course, because the Knicks media, we're going to start chirping at some point. Oh my goodness, can you believe the extension isn't done yet? What's RJ going to do? Are the Knicks, going too close to the finish line? What's going to happen? We saw what went on with Kyrie. Like, everything is going to come up, of course. And with the Knicks or Dolan, everything, everyone's going to throw stuff at the wall when it comes to the Knicks and a contract negotiation. But I 100% believe that RJ Barrett and Mitchell Robinson will be re-signed / extended to this team. But I don't think that either of them will be for the max.
Now, a quick follow-up. Is RJ getting that extension this offseason before the season begins? Or do you think it might not even happen? They'll extend him even after the season or during the season?
Yeah, I think they're going to wait a little bit because they're in no rush. And I believe that the relationship is so strong. Like, there's no qualms about, do they want me? What's my role? Everybody is on the same page when it comes to RJ Barrett and the New York Knicks. So I believe that he's going to do what's best for the New York Knicks because he wants to win. There's nobody on planet Earth that wants better players on the New York Knicks than RJ Barrett. Not me, not you, not Alex, not any fan that's in this chat. Not one person wants better players than the New York Knicks than RJ Barrett because he gets his ass kicked during the game when it's fourth quarter and they give him the ball and they tell him to ISO and it just falls on his head. Sometimes he's able to hit the game-winning three and sometimes he misses at the hoop. You know what I mean? And sometimes he misses a free throw. It's all on his shoulder. He needs better players around him. So I think that Mitch Robinson might do what's best for him. You know what I mean? He had some rough times, rough management, rough agent stuff, second-round pick. RJ Barrett, the third pick in the draft, signed by Puma. He's good to go, man. He's the star of the Knicks. Like, they're gonna wait it out and do a team-friendly deal, in my opinion.
I hope so, man. I hope so. Alex, your thoughts about Mitchell Robinson, pending free agent? Is he going to be back with the Knicks? And RJ Barrett potentially being extended this offseason for that rookie max?
At one point, I didn't think Mitch was going to be back, but now that the way that the market's kind of shaken up, like Dallas Mavericks were a team that was looking towards Mitchell Robinson. They got Christian Wood. You're looking at the Detroit Pistons, another team that was interested in Mitchell Robinson, but now they got Jalen Duran, and they also have Isaiah Stewart. So then why do those two guys need centers? Maybe someone like Golden State, but I don't even see Golden State doing that. So I think Mitch is going to be a Knick for the mid-level exception. I think he is going to return. Look, I think he loves New York. He talked about it being his home. I think if you want to read all the subliminal tweets for Mitch and all of his IG stories, he's probably gonna be back. He's most likely going to be back. RJ, now for RJ, it's not. RJ will get his extension. I feel like the hang up is, does he believe in himself enough to bet on himself to go for a bigger contract towards the end of the season? Or is he going to play the safer option and get as much as he can now and then prove it for the next contract, right? That's kind of where my thought process is. I'm thinking it's going to be the latter. I think it would be the former, where he's going to say, I'm going to bank on myself, perform well this season, and show you why I'm damn near worth either all of it or damn near close all of the max money. And I think he's going to take another step forward this year. And actually, on this channel where I said RJ would average 20 points per game last season.
Yes, sir.
And what'd he do? He averaged 20 points per game.
20
So I think RJ is going to be I think he's going to take that challenge. He's going to get the extension at the end of this season, but he's going to bet on himself to show that he's going to be worth close to the max money.
But I can just make one comment about this max. Do you think that he learned a little bit of a lesson watching what happened with Randall getting maybe too much?
Just about to say that was exactly what I was going to say, John.
Sorry, man. Go ahead.
No.
No, I want to hear from you, because I feel like he learned such a valuable lesson, man. He saw the Knicks at the low point when he got in. He saw them at the super high when we were going nuts because we won one game versus Atlanta. And then he saw what we did for Randall. Randall was the king. We were following around his son. You know what I mean? And now we saw like the crash of the Knicks and Randall and what that happened. I wonder what he learned from the Randall situation.
Yeah, and if you remember last offseason when we gave Randall that extension, we didn't have to do that. He still had 1 year left on his contract. And at the time, at least I was thinking like, oh, this is awesome. Randall is taking less money. He could have easily bet himself and then got the Supermax if he played. At that time, we're expecting him to replicate what he did last season, which obviously did not happen. So it's really interesting to see what RJ Barrett does with the contract-wise. But speaking about RJ real quick, I feel like he's just going to get better and better every single season for the rest of his career until he hits his peak. And I feel like this is a player that Knicks fans should be very happy that we actually have a star in the making from the draft, because I've been waiting. We all have been waiting for so long to draft a player and give him that second contract and develop into our own star. We got a little baby taste of it with Kristaps for like one season. We're like, oh, Kristaps. And then we all know it quickly just flipped around. And then we traded him for all those assets. But we've been waiting for that first round pick. We draft, we develop properly, becomes the face of the franchise. And the one reason why I think RJ has what it takes is his mentality and is able to, outside of his physical gifts on the court, his ability to handle the pressure off the court and being able to be in the light of New York City. I'll never forget when he was on First Take before he was even drafted, and it was Stephen A. Smith. I don't even want to talk about Stephen A. Smith, but I have to bring him up for this thing. But Stephen A. Smith asked him, why, if you're going to the Knicks, because it was obvious he was going to the Knicks at that time, what do you have to say? And he's like, I'm built for it. I'm built for New York. And like, you can tell that he's built for it. For example, Randall's not, right? Randall, he's a very talented, gifted basketball player, Julius Randall, but it got inside of his brain and he couldn't handle it. It can't handle it. It can't handle the pressure of being all that. RJ's even keel. RJ's in a 9-game slump. He's like this. RJ's in a 10-game, like 30 points per game. He's like this. Even keel. That's all you want from your franchise player. That's my rant about how awesome RJ Barrett's going to be on this team. So I want to talk about real quick before we wrap up the stream. We still got 15 minutes to go. Appreciate everybody tuning in. We got 400 people with exactly 100 likes. Thank you guys so much for hitting that like button. We appreciate you. Hit that subscribe button as well. We just hit 8K. We're on our way to 9K. So help me out to get the 9,000 subscribers. Again, guys, appreciate all the support here on the channel. Let's talk about a player that we actually drafted. We actually drafted a player, guys, if you didn't know. I actually made a video on him today, how he could be potentially a steal. There was an article on NY Post that he interviewed a Duke assistant coach, and he had nothing but great things to say. I'm actually interviewing that NY Post guy on my channel Wednesday to get inside information about that. So Trevor Keels out of Duke, 42nd overall pick. I think that he's a player that, we first thing we say is, all right, Tom Thibodeau's not playing him. He's a rookie. He's 18 years old. But you look at him, he just screams that Tom Thibodeau style of player. Former defensive end of football, purely physical. At Duke, his best game of his career was where? At Madison Square Garden. He's raw. What's your thoughts of him, Alex? Your thoughts of Trevor Keels and his potential? Obviously, we're going to get to see him in Summer League. But what's your expectations from him as a rookie and potentially him developing in the system?
My expectation for him is just to get reps down in the G League, honestly. I feel like the position, he is a position anomaly from what I've heard so far, is that you don't know if he's going to be a guard. You don't know if he's going to be a forward. He's kind of giving me like PJ Tucker type of vibes, just a gritty guy who's very smart on the court. Like you see that PJ Tucker played center when he was with Houston. He's so interchangeable. You could place him anywhere, and that's kind of what Keels is giving me, where you can just place him anywhere because of his strength. I don't know how he's going to contribute to the Knicks moving forward if he's with the Knicks for that long, but as of right now, just for him to get reps down in the G League, man, and just to make sure he can develop his game. His shooting needs to become a little bit more consistent. Smart player, tenacious, all those things, all those other intangibles, but his game's still raw. He just has to refine them to be a true contributor on this team. So I don't really expect much. I'm excited to see what he can do during the summer league, but I think most of his time is going to be down in Westchester.
Yeah, I think, we saw a second-round pick last year in Deuce McBride go down to Westchester and look like, hey, you don't belong there. You're like too good to be there. Let's get you up to the Garden and play some real basketball. So I'm curious if Trevor Keels goes to the G League and can light it up just like Deuce. But John, what's your thoughts of Trevor Keels? Anything that you learned about him when you did your research on him, and anything you took away from him his freshman year with Duke?
Yeah, so the one thing that came up for Keels is, and I didn't even really realize it was him until after we drafted him, and then I had to go back. But there was that Duke-Kentucky game where Banchero and Wendell Moore went down, and he murdered that game. He literally beat Kentucky, and then they blew him out. It was because of him. So I know that he can do it, so that's good. He's a fun player. What do I expect from him? I expect for him to just be in the G League this year. If we are having a real youth movement, he's going to have a chance to play, right? His positionless position kind of works in his favor with this Knicks team, because really the forwards is where we slack. Maybe it's crowded, but I think we slack in the type of wing skill, right? Obi, I know he's a poor man Sean Marion maybe right now. We know how we all feel about Randall. We don't have that prototypical 3-and-D guy. Can he be that? I don't know.
There's Obi.
There's our boy Obi, who, listen, man, after one offseason, we saw what happened to Obi Toppin. We saw the complete 180 change in Obi Toppin after one offseason. And he didn't even really get to play. If we can get some valuable time in Westchester, home of Alex Rateris, then we are able to hopefully put a nice little team together, dude. It's all about development. Imagine the Knicks have players like McBride, players that they draft, Mitch Robinson, second-round picks, RJ Barrett, first-round picks. Are actual players that we're re-signing, that we're developing, man. That's how you create a team. And then, like you said, you strike when the iron's hot. We have our assets. We have our draft picks. When the iron's hot, when that guy shows his face, when listen, man, if Kyrie Irving is disgruntled and he's with Kevin Durant and he's making a max contract, anybody can be disgruntled. Literally any player in the NBA. So if we have the assets for it and we have a decent team, like you said, we have to put something on the table, right? We have to show them something. I'm sorry to say, bring it back to the Jets, but the Jets showed something for at least somebody like DJ Reed to be like, okay, maybe I'll sign here. You know what I mean? Like maybe this is, you have to show something to these NBA players that are going to make $20 to $30 million no matter where they go. It just depends on why would I come to the Knicks, because they can develop players. So that's what I hope, man. I just hope he becomes a role player. If he can become a 15-minute guy, I will be ecstatic.
Now, is this guy right here going to give him 15 minutes?
Not right now, but he can become a role player in the league, man.
Oh, yeah,
he can become a role player. Listen, I'm not sure if it was your specific channel, but I remember lots of Knicks media was freaking out about Sharif Cooper last year, right? Oh, yeah, Sharif Cooper. Oh, how can we miss on him? The second-round pick is going to be amazing. He stinks. Okay, he's going to be better than Sharif Cooper. How about that for a low bar?
And then I want to touch on this prospect real quick. We got an undrafted free agent, Gene Montero. Really interesting prospect. Alex, anything that you learned about with Gene Montero when you did your research, and you think Knicks fans should be excited to see what he could do in Summer League?
So we just over at KnicksFanTV.com, we got our draft expert, Jeffrey Campbell, who actually broke it down way early at the beginning of this past season. So go over there, check it out. It's his third article on top 3 point guards. Something that I like about Gene Montero is his ability to pass and really run the open court and just pass in the half court. that alone, I think, is a trait that we're missing, like on the Knicks. Once again, I don't expect this guy to be getting playing time. I'm excited to see he got an Exhibit 10 contract, so he's going to be with the team for the 20-man roster going into Summer League. If he gets cut and doesn't get like a two-way contract, the Knicks still have the opportunity to go put him down with the Westchester Knicks. So, this is where I'm a little upset. I'm a little upset that the Westchester Knicks are still in Bridgeport, because if they were back in White Plains, I'd be there watching a lot of games right now. So I think he'll just be contributing in the G League for the most part. His passing is really where it's at. Once again, another guy that needs to define, like, really, because he played in overtime elite. Another guy that really needs to like refine his skills and be sure and to be a true contributor in the NBA. That's what I'm getting from like these guys. Can they be? Absolutely. But this is why like Montero goes undrafted. He was talked about as like a top first round pick at some point throughout the season. But as we see as the season goes on, there's there's just a little bit more these guys need to do in order to get some more playing time in the NBA.
I agree, man. Quick shout out to Carlton. I appreciate these kind words, big time. John, what's your thoughts on Montero that you took away from him? I feel like Alex hit on the nail. He's a small, shifty, fluid point guard that has that playmaking instinctually, and his story is awesome. I just love that league that he came up in. So what's your thoughts of G. Montero?
Yeah, I mean, Alex and I sometimes our draft analysis kind of coincides because we're reading the same thing. We're consuming the same product sometimes. And I read that same article by Jeff that kind of, it steered us in a direction that at least gives us McBride vibes. You know what I mean? Just the way he kind of talks about him. And then, of course, you have to go to YouTube, be like, who the hell is this guy, right? And, kind of go a little hard into him, kind of try to watch long games, kind of just to see what kind of player he is at least. I don't have any expectations for Montero at all. I just kind of want to watch him in the G. I want to watch him in the Summer League. I'm going to watch him just in the Knicks system, and that's what being a Knicks fan is all about at the end of the day. Of course, everybody knows the stars. Everybody knows the starting rotation. But as a Knicks fan, like we have to go deep, man. We all know the Kenny Wootens. We all know all these players that are just moving around the league. Ish Smith, right? Like those are the kind of players that are role players on NBA teams. Not Wooten, of course, but like Smith and even Miles Powell was trying to get some burn around. People trying to take Galloway. You know what I'm trying to say? Like there's players that develop in our system and they end up being pretty good. Even Gallo, we drafted him. We have to have some credit for that. We didn't burn him to the ground. All we did was trade him for Melo. So I think there's value. There's finally some value in Westchester, which took a while. It really, really took a while for that.
Yeah, Alex, seriously.
Thank you, man. Thank you, Alex. Alex is one of us that supports them, right? Like our minor league team, and finally the Knicks are treating it like that, man. That's what I'm excited about. I'm excited to watch him play. I expect him to get McBride time in the G League, McBride time on the Knicks in 2 years, where it's like nothing, and we'll see what happens.
Let's hope that he replaces McBride and McBride's on the Knicks and getting some playing time with the Knicks, because he's a player that I want to see on the court and getting real-time minutes and not just not playing. But Alex and John, I appreciate you boys hopping in on the channel. This was awesome. We broke down everything regarding the Knicks offseason. We recapped what happened in the NBA draft, but at the same time, it's hard to recap it when we don't know what they're going to do with those assets yet. So stay tuned on this channel. I'll be breaking down everything that happens in the next couple of weeks, and I'm definitely going to have you boys hop on the channel when we finally figure out what the Knicks do when they trade for that superstar, and now all of a sudden we're saying we're going to the finals. Wow, that would be cool if that reality would come to fruition. Am I right? But guys, in all seriousness, I appreciate all the support here on Knicks Media. The chat was awesome tonight. The support's been great on Knicks Media for the past couple of weeks. It really does mean a lot to me that you continuously show all the support here on the channel and, of course, on Twitter and on Instagram. But please do me a favor. Go down below and check out their podcast. If you're a Knicks fan, they do great Knicks content. And if you're a Jets fan, it's even better because they talk about the Jets as well and sometimes the Yankees. So check out their podcast down below. That's linked, and we appreciate you boys hopping on. And of course, guys, don't forget to like the stream if you enjoyed. And yeah, that's really it. Alex, anything you'd like to say before we wrap up the stream, my man?
Yeah, salute to Knicks Nation. Make sure to support Richie, man. This is a hard working man. He was just at the premiere for Take Flight because of Jets Media. This kid's out here working. Make sure to subscribe to all of his channels, all right? You got
Appreciate
Knicks media, you got Jets media, you got Mets media, you got all the medias. Make sure to check out Richie. Make sure to follow, subscribe, hit the like button, everything. Support him. He does great work.
Yeah, trust in Leon Rose and trust in Richie.
Hell yeah, maybe. Leon Rose got to call up Joe Douglas. That's all I got to say.
Yo, listen, man. You're one of the only guys to understand us. They moved the same way. We had no idea any of these trades were happening, dude. Not one of them. Not even a clue.
Fact. You're right. You're right. But John, anything else you'd like to say before we end off the stream?
Let's keep it positive. Let's keep it positive, man.
Oh, yeah.
Good things are coming, dude. Good things are coming.
Listen to John. Good things are coming. Keep your head up. Do not criticize this Knicks draft until we get to see what's happening. Any Giants fans in the chat, it's all love. It's okay. Okay. We're not talking crap about anything but that. Let's go Knicks. And we appreciate you fellas. And we're about to kill this free agency. We're about to get a star. Positive vibes only.
Let's
Peace
go.
out, everybody.
Let's go.
Let's go Knicks.
Let's go.